Hello, this is Keith Kreischer, the Executive Director of the IoT M2M Council, or IMC, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this webinar on SIM technology, brought to you by the IMC. I certainly hope everyone joining us today is staying safe and well in these interesting times. The topic for today's panel discussion is the latest Gen SIM technology, and the panel will be moderated by my good friend Jim Morrish, founder and principal at Transforma Insights, one of the best known analyst firms in the IoT sector. And the panel will feature Vodafone IoT, Telit, Cinterion, and Pelion for the next 45 minutes or so. Then we'll have a brief spotlight presentation on SIMs from A1 Digital. I'll hand off to Jim in just a minute, but first, before we begin, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. This webcast is being streamed through your computer, so there is no dial-in number. For the best audio quality, please make sure your computer speakers or headset are turned on and the volume is up so you can hear the presenters. An on-demand version of the webcast will be available later today and can be accessed using the same audience link sent to you earlier. Also, materials from the presenters are available in the handouts section of the webinar interface. We encourage everyone in the audience to check that out. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. The presenters may answer questions at the end of each session, but please feel free to ask questions at any time during the presentations. Any unanswered questions will be responded to offline. We will have a record of your question associated with your registration, so we will get back to you. For those of you that do not know the IMC, perhaps just a quick word of introduction. The IMC is the largest trade organization dedicated to the global IoT sector. Its membership is comprised of 28,000 rank and file adopter members who are individual enterprise users, product makers, OEMs, and apps developers that deploy IoT solutions in the field. The IMC's board of governors includes 35 of the most influential IoT technology companies that are providing solutions in the form of hardware, software, and connectivity. We encourage anybody attending today to check out our website at iotm2mcouncil.org. On that website, you'll find information about the IMC's newest initiative, just really announced publicly recently, and that is a joint task force on IoT security formed with the Global Certification Forum. There's lots going on in the area of IoT security right now. In fact, we've got another session on that immediately following this one. What makes our initiative unique is that it covers not just IoT devices, but also networks and cloud app platforms. So please take a look at that on the IMC website. Moving on to today's session, the mission of the IMC is to accelerate the adoption of IoT technology for the public good. And we look at today's session on SIM technologies exactly in keeping with that mission. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Jim Morrish from Transforma Insights. Jim, take us away.
Thank you, Keith. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session. This is a panel session, and it is entitled eSIM, iSIM. Everybody's talking about subscriber identity modules. I'm Jim Morrish. I'm half of the founding partners of a company called Transforma Insights. We're a firm of industry analysts specializing in IoT and many technologies which enable digital transformation. But today is all about eSIM and iSIM. So just briefly, eSIM allows for great flexibility in choosing connectivity providers, and it's a proven technology. Meanwhile, iSIM takes that concept a little further and integrates connectivity functions directly into central processors, allowing for design flexibility and reducing power consumption. This section is going to dive into the applications most suited for these next generation SIMs and explore where SIM technology is headed next. And we're also going to get a bit of a deep dive into exactly how this works and what this means and the significance for devices. As I mentioned, it's a panel discussion. I'm going to be joined by Yetin Pawar, who is Head of Product and Portfolio Management with Vodafone IoT, and Alan Tate, who is CTO with Pelion, and Jose Sanchez, who is Senior Director of Product Management and IoT Connectivity with Telit Cinterion. The format is each panelist has a couple of intro slides, very quick introduction, then we're on to the discussion. So please do submit questions and we will include those in the discussion if we can after the initial presentations. So with that said, please take it away, Yetin.
Thank you, Jim, and good afternoon, good morning, everyone, wherever you might be. My name is Yatin Pala, and I'll walk you through a couple of slides on Vodafone IoT and our perspective on eSIM and iSIM. So as far as Vodafone IoT is concerned, we have been in IoT now for a really long time. In fact, for the last 11 years, we've been rated as one of the top IoT providers across the globe. And that's been a consecutive achievement that we've managed to have over this period of time. Our IoT connectivity today is available across nearly 800 networks, nearly 180 countries, which obviously means that no matter where our customers are or where our customers need IoT connectivity, it's very likely that they will be able to get that access pretty much across the world. In terms of what we've achieved as connections of devices, we today connect more than 200 million devices. So that does make us one of the largest as far as IoT across the world is concerned. And in fact, even zooming in on, for example, the low power wide area networks, even there we have more than 100 plus networks where we offer LPWA. And of course, we're doing a bit for the environment as well, thanks to IoT and the connectivity we provide to our customers, and we have been able to save nearly 18 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. Nearly half of that was just in the last 1 or 2 years. And just for context or perspective, many smaller European countries, that's the kind of annual carbon emission they have. So you can see that it not just is improving lives, but also making an impact to the environment. So that's Vodafone IoT as a whole. As you can see, we operate at scale, and scalability and reliability is one of our mainstays, and our promise that we can connect anything, anywhere, anytime. Now, coming to today's topic in particular, which is on eSIM and iSIM, and I've just listed a few points here for reference, and we will, I'm sure, talk more about this as we get into today's session. Now, we do see that eSIM has been around for 10 plus years, and we've been offering eSIM, and many of our customers have that experience right from the beginning. So eSIM is not a new technology for us. Of course, standards are now evolving, so it is making things different for many customers who are wanting to take up eSIM. But we have seen already in the past 10 years that the automotive industry, utilities, energy companies, and a lot of the manufacturing companies have adopted eSIM for a long time. And of course, I expect will be the first to also transition into the new standards on eSIM that are coming up. Now, in terms of what are the benefits of eSIM versus the traditional plastic SIMs that many of us are familiar with or have been familiar with in consumer devices, and of course that's also changed, is of course it reduces complexity when it comes to manufacturing the device, where the SIM is to be hosted, when that SIM is embedded as part of the device, and it obviously makes it reduces the need for components, and can be a simpler design, so production is easier. It obviously then reduces cost when it comes to production for customers who would otherwise be stocking SIMs and having to manage the logistics of sending SIMs here and there across their different devices. Well, the moment you have eSIM or iSIM, then it's you don't need to have those physical SIMs in. So it reduces a lot of complexity for management, for logistics, and of course reduces cost as well for customers who then use eSIM. Again, because it's an embedded SIM, it saves a lot of time. So for customers who want to activate or who want to even switch networks, switch connectivity providers, they don't need to then have to worry about swapping SIMs as we would have with physical SIMs, and they can just, with some over-the-air commands and over the internet or over HTTPS, whatever protocols might be used, it's possible then to just switch quite seamlessly the connectivity provider. So again, a lot of simplification for customers who would then be using eSIM and iSIM. Even so, in terms of if there's a need to switch network providers in a country, for example, for coverage reasons or cost reasons, again, it's quite easily possible to switch again without having to switch physical SIMs. We've also seen that many countries in the world where there are certain restrictions on permanent roaming, especially with IoT, where often devices will stay in a country for more than a certain period of time, and therefore they cannot be roaming permanently, as it's called. Then it's necessary to have a local connectivity there. And with eSIM, again, you don't have to physically swap SIMs. All you need to do is simply download a new profile of that local of that local country, a telco in the local country, for example, and it's possible to still continue and still be compliant. So again, it's a big differentiator for using an eSIM versus using a physical SIM. So I'll stop here for now and pass it on back to you. Back to you, Jim.
Okay, thank you very much for those introductory comments, Yatin. Next up, I think we have Alan Tate, CTO of Pelion. Alan.
Hello. So hi, my name's Alan. I'm Chief Technology Officer, one of the directors here at Pelion. We're an IoT connectivity customer. We work with a wide range of customers, vendors, suppliers. Vodafone here previously on. We take supply from them, we sell it to a large number of our customers as well. Not quite as big as 200 million, but we've got about 1.8, 2 million global connections a day, servicing over 2,000 customers direct in the IoT space. We run across 600 networks worldwide, and look over 160 countries worldwide we're providing service. We run across a wide range of industries, so we're supplying quite heavily into areas like social care. We've got a number of working utilities, infrastructure, and the energy sector. We work with some people who are doing large-scale tracking and logistics, plant manufacturing, all the way through to, if you've got a Hive charger on your wall at home, that's probably something that we're supplying into. Or if you're on some transport services in the UK, we're doing some of the very high-capacity Wi-Fi offload. So everything from a smart meter sitting on your wall sending 10 kilobytes of data per month, all the way up to something which is doing 60, 70 terabytes sending across. Primary set of customers in the UK, Europe, and North America. As I said, we do supply worldwide. So we've been in a wide range of IoT-based solutions, and are very excited for kind of that eSIM and iSIM-based future. So how do we develop connectivity? So we work with a lot of our partners, and we were able to provide you connectivity across a range of partner networks across the world. So Vodafone being one of them, but AT&T in North America, BT here, Telit out in Europe, roaming solutions across the board. We can do that through embedded SIMs. We're beginning to work with some of the people who are actually doing iSIM integration. And in a previous life, I used to work as part of ARM and as part of their iSIM division, helping bring connectivity right down into the chip level there. So we provide that connectivity layer. We've also designed and built all our platform management and integrated services. So you can come to us and take service across a wide range of operator partners across one interface, one data layer. And we've been at this for a large amount of time. Our team here has incredibly high expertise in IoT. We've seen a lot of various different solutions all the way through from old style SCADA devices connecting over CSD through to kind of the 2G industrial style networks that deployed out for early stage M2M into the world that we're in today with NB-IoT, CAT-M, 5G and alternative technologies coming through. And that's me.
Okay, thank you very much, Alan. And next up, Jose Sanchez of Telit Cinterion. Jose.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks everybody for joining and the MC for organizing this event. Yeah, my name is Jose Sanchez, and I'm heading product management for connectivity in Cinterion. And chances are, if you know or if you've built an IoT device, that you've come across Telit Cinterion. Telit Cinterion is a company that's been there for more than 25 years already. We have delivered millions of hardware IoT modules, but also millions of IoT connectivity SIMs. So we are one of the top IoT MVNOs, on top of being, a leader in the IoT module space. And on top of that, our portfolio includes also software and custom solutions. So software for industrial automation, so industrial IoT platforms and services, but also custom solutions for any kind of customer wishing to deploy quickly an IoT application. So Telit Cinterion itself, we see ourselves as an end-to-end solutions enabler. So as such, we cover not only connectivity, but also connectivity enablement. And this is, in fact, what we're talking about today with eSIM and iSIM, right? Connectivity enablement. And what are the benefits we believe that eSIM and iSIM bring to the IoT markets and IoT applications as a whole? To put it simple, we believe that eSIM brings and delivers value throughout the whole application lifetime. So starting from the manufacturing, the ability to build a device with a single global SKU, to simplify logistics and manufacturing, to simplify installation processes for IoT devices. Throughout the lifetime of the application, the ability to provide seamless global connectivity in places where there might be restrictions, and in a changing world as we are in, right? You need to be responsive, so you need to have a device and also a SIM that is able to adapt to changing market conditions. And last but not least, the ability to provide bulletproof connectivity, which means eSIM and iSIM, especially some features brought in by the new eSIM IoT specification, enable IoT applications to be more resilient when it comes to reacting to outages. And this is something that we believe that's going to be also a key use case for eSIM moving forward. So as a module vendor and a connectivity and IoT MVNO and connectivity service provider, we have a rather, I would say, unique view of the market, and this is summarized a little bit also in the next slide. So how do we believe that cellular modules will evolve from what has been traditionally a situation where a module and a SIM card have been sourced independently to a situation where a module and SIM are sourced in a single part number and used in a variety of applications and use cases. So we think that the traditional model where module and SIM are delivered standalone will evolve into a model where the SIM is integrated in module, which is happening already today, to a module where there is an eSIM inside the module, eventually also in an iSIM form factor, with RSP capabilities. That means that the module will be delivered to OEMs and service providers, and that would be upgradable either in a factory via in-factory provisioning or over the air via a global bootstrap, and then managed over life cycle, following one of the use cases that we mentioned before. And that's how we see that the future of the cellular module and the eSIM and iSIM converge. Right, so thanks a lot.
Excellent. Thank you each for your introductory comments. So now we're moving on to the discussion phase of this panel. Again, reminders to everybody listening in, thanks for joining us. If you have questions, please do submit them and I will put them to these guys if I can fit them in. Firstly, though, I wonder if it might be worth doing a bit of a technical baselining and just spinning back a bit, because we've talked about eSIM and iSIM and so on and so forth. And I'm wondering, Alan, as a CTO, you seem like an ideal chap to tell us, what's an introductory explanation of exactly what eSIM and iSIM are. I think you're on mute, Alan.
The classic.
The platform does it automatically, don't worry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, eSIM is one of those interesting terms. It can mean a number of different things, but in our context, what we're really talking about is embedded SIMs. So you can embed a SIM and you can integrate a SIM. Now, embedded SIMs are typically soldered on, they're inside a device. eSIM can also refer to an electronically profiled SIM of which you can download onto an embedded SIM or a standard SIM if you choose to. Now, most people will be aware of eSIMs in the context of downloading a profile onto them, but in this context, embedded SIM is a device. From a form factor, it's what's actually soldered onto the hardware inside the device. Now, iSIM is taking that a step further. It's looking to get rid of the SIM entirely and move that actually onto the PCB. So you can have one fully integrated chip, which has your compute, it has everything that you need, and it has a cellular capability built straight into there. Now, that identity module can then be used for other applications if you choose to as well, but primarily that becomes your connected element built into your device. So when we were working in the sort of IP world, the goal was to basically sell a connected chip, which had everything required for connectivity fully built into the PCB that can be shipped as a single SoC.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Alan. And actually, what I'd like to do now is just take it to take the next step. I'll stick with you, Alan, and then I'll ask Jose, Yetin, your inputs. The advantages of eSIM and iSIM. You touched on some there, but what are the advantages both for connectivity vendors and for end users?
Yeah, I mean, for connectivity vendors, I mean, it's simple. You get connectivity in there. It's built in. It's designed. You're in with the hardware. It works. The chance of having to replace that SIM card, it's very much in the basics of the device. Now, that's why eSIM and iSIM go very hand in hand with UICC, because you want to be able to personalize that device potentially once it leaves the factory. You don't want to have to be locked for one underlying connectivity provider. What it means to both manufacturing and the end user is actually you can build connectivity in very early, but then you only need to build one product line. So you have that connectivity built in there, it's servicing the needs of it. It can be a bootstrap connectivity, and then it can be personalized for a region or a country it's deploying to. So it means that, not to pick on Vodafone, but if you have a bad experience with Vodafone, you're able to swap out to another provider, another use case. And that's the sort of more modern technology that's coming with the SIMs that are building in. So in years gone by, you had to do vendor choice very early if you wanted to do an eSIM or an iSIM. Today, with the technology that's moved on around these capabilities, building a SIM in at point of manufacturer isn't a vendor lock-in like it used to be. It's now something that you can add an additional capability around that you want to have a connected element, and then the end user can make the choice as to what they want that device to be as it comes out of the factory.
Okay, thank you. Yetin and Jose, do you have anything to add to that summary of the advantages?
Yeah, I think Alan's made a few good points. It certainly gives flexibility to customers when you have something like an eSIM, as I mentioned even earlier. The sheer daunting task of having to swap out SIMs and then switch MNOs is obviously then much simpler. I think for the industry as such, it creates more competition, which is always good for the customer, because there's always that challenge that if the customer is not happy with their service, it makes it easier for them as compared to in the past to be able to switch, for example. There are, of course, savings in terms of cost, because you don't have physical SIMs and it's all part of the hardware. So it's quite easy to then save some cost there. Power requirements are also reduced because then you don't have these separate components. So and when that happens, it opens up a massive market for what we refer to as constrained devices, which are operating on batteries and need to survive for many years. And again, it's a great benefit for devices like that if the power consumption is reduced. Also, I think one of the things we are seeing, and it's my personal favorite, is where it's opening up new form factors of how IoT applications can be developed because of eSIM and iSIM, and it's amazing the kind of things we see our customers doing just with that flexibility.
Okay, thank you. Jose, any additional thoughts on the benefits, the advantages of this approach?
Yeah, I mean, my colleagues already mentioned quite a few. I would say to add to that, the new eSIM opens up new possibilities in terms of strategies, opening up new strategies to manage connectivity for connectivity service providers,
Yes.
and that will result probably in better reliability for end users. So in end users, and that in the end ends up being better quality of service and experience for end customers. What our end customers want is being always connected 24/7 without disruption, and eSIM brings in additional possibilities to the mix of technologies that can be used to achieve reliability that I think are promising.
Okay, so we're enabling much more flexibility in manufacturing, and a more vibrant supplier ecosystem and connectivity supplier ecosystem, and more competition, obviously leading to better and more innovative solutions. So these are all steps in the right direction that are coming with this new technology. But Yatin, well, I'd like to see your views on who are the customers who are the first to adopt this. What are the first use cases that are driving traction in the market, this new technology, I guess?
Yeah, for some it's new. For some customer types and customers, they have been using this for a while. And the top two that come to mind is the automotive industry, the car manufacturers. And as we know, every car today is connected. It's got a SIM in it, and cars last for a long time, and they're 10, 20 years, and they need to remain connected. And obviously, for a car manufacturer, they'd hate to be locked in to one provider. So it's a real real world use case and a real benefit for them to have that flexibility and almost treat it like an insurance policy so to speak, where they know they have the flexibility of being able to switch. But more importantly, or equally importantly, for someone like us who works with pretty much all the top car manufacturers in the world, it also allows us to give them flexibility, when they want to expand their footprint into other countries, and we need to perhaps comply with local regulation or switch to the best networks. We can do that with the eSIM. Another, I would say, industry using eSIM quite a lot are the utilities, because again, think smart meters, and they need they need to last for tens of years, and again, they can't keep switching connectivity or having to go into a basement and imagine trying to switch SIM cards. So again, it's a massive cost saving and a massive benefit for them. The third, I would say, from our top three is medical device manufacturers, because again, they need to be connected, and there's a significance of that, having that connectivity for medical device manufacturers, whether it's heart rate monitors, sleep apnea machines, etc. It needs that regular connectivity, and they of course need that flexibility as well, just like the automotives and the utilities need. There are many more, asset tracking, etc., but I'm just mentioning the top three that, from my perspective, have been the widest adopters of eSIM/iSIM technology.
Okay, and Alan, Jose, are you seeing anything materially different from that or would you basically seeing the same kind of dynamics in the market?
I'm aligned with Jatin for sure. Those are the industries that are driving the adoption of eSIM at a wider scale. But I think moving forward, midterm, we'll see additional industries adopting it, and not necessarily because they are requiring it, but because that would be an instrument that connectivity service providers will use to deliver global coverage, right? Yeah. And as such, I think it was mentioned, global tracking, asset management, tracking companies, or remote monitoring applications installed in countries which need single. I mean, that would like to use a single global SKU, but where there are restrictions in terms of regulatory restrictions, permanent roaming, etc., will end up using eSIM even if they are not requesting it explicitly. And a second industry segment, which is more related to critical applications, might also go and use eSIM as a mechanism to improve the reliability of the connection. Think of security, think of healthcare again, certain critical asset monitor applications, etc. that will certainly also benefit from eSIM and multi-profile configurations to achieve better resilience. What today we know customers using multiple SIMs in a device, they might end up using a single SIM, a single eSIM with multiple profiles.
So, and Alan, thank you for that. Following up on that, Alan, perhaps your thoughts on what you think the characteristics might be of this kind of next wave of customer who's going to start really driving eSIM, iSIM volumes over the next few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that we interestingly did when we were kind of designing the solution out. I think we've touched on a couple of elements of it. It's like where that new form factor and new capabilities is really coming in. One of the areas that we were approaching, what we're looking at, and it's still something that I believe today is the old mantra that anything that can be connected will be connected. So what you're beginning to see is if you can get connected elements cheap enough, if you can get the form factors that they can be coexisting with lots of other things on chip, if you can get like an NB-IoT module or whatever the 5G ones come down, you can build it into anything. And what does that mean? It's like traditionally things that you wouldn't bother to connect with a sort of warranty style lifecycle or connection that isn't giving you a huge amount of value, you might start doing. One of the things that we were looking at was whether or not it would be worth embedding an NB-IoT element in white goods. So you could actually get an understanding of the telemetry of how it's being used in market, and also for any warranty or any reasons why it might fail ahead of time. And because the form factor, the integration, the security, the use cases meant that the risk of putting this in was no more expensive than the license you were already paying for the processor, and the enablement technology was easy, cheap, and easy to do, and ubiquitous, meant that you would see a mass proliferation of essentially connected objects. And it wouldn't be the sort of ones you expect. It's not your smart meters, it's not your smart lights, it's not that. It would be your fridge, it would be your oven, it would be your washing machine. And these sort of elements are being able to send back metrics to understand how they're being used. And that would be kind of taking that service lifecycle loop that exists in a lot of industrial use cases, but moving that more into the home, because then you've got these large-scale manufacturers being able to understand how their products are being used in the market, which they've never been able to understand before. So that was an area that we could see that being able to shrink the connectivity down, getting to the point where it's ubiquitous, cheap, and integrated, meant that you would see mass proliferation of devices.
Okay, and just picking on a slightly different topic. So yes, and you mentioned earlier the advent of these technologies, or the more widespread adoption of these technologies driving competition. I guess that results in business models changing, or at least some level of business model competition. So how are business models changing to accommodate these new dynamics?
Well, of course, there are cost savings to be had. There are the way the connectivity is embedded into at the point of manufacturer obviously makes many of the module manufacturers much more interested in combining the connectivity and offering it as a kind of a package solution as well. But then also for me, what I'm seeing a lot is how, and I mentioned this earlier briefly, is how the form factors are being used. And for example, smart label, for example, is something that I really am quite impressed with. And the way, just imagine you actually embed connectivity in a simple thin label that you would put on as a wrapper on some item. And that actually has connectivity. It can be tracked, and you can know if it's got any motion detected and change in temperature, etc., or if any tampering has happened. We could not do a lot of this earlier because it was either very bulky or very expensive, or it just wouldn't last that long if it had to travel for weeks and months or through various temperatures. So again, this is allowing a lot of new use cases, new applications. Businesses who could not track and monitor their assets are now able to do that because of these new models, these new form factors, which then allow more and more industries to take advantage of IoT and the new technology, especially things like iSIM.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. And a similar question to you, Jose. Have you seen any new, innovative, interesting, just different business models emerging off the back of these kind of technologies?
We have seen, I mean, there are constantly new use cases, new applications emerging. That's nature of the IoT market, right? It's diverse, and it's sometimes hard to grasp. You need to follow. I mean, innovation pace is amazing. I think that what we see are new things of using new ways of using the technology. Also, I mean, trying to achieve, for instance, easier installation for devices in a smart city, for instance, and ensuring that the quality of service is guaranteed, and you don't have to revisit the site, for instance. So implementing easier processes, and also implementing easier processes for end user connectivity selection. Think of the IoT gateways or routers. They are also starting to implement eSIM at scale, and that simplifies dramatically the end user experience. So I see new use cases rather than, I mean, of course, new applications, but this the exciting thing I see is in the existing applications, new use cases, right?
Yeah, excellent. So there's one level of business model innovation in the vendor community providing connectivity, but there's a whole new level of innovation that enables for end users and the companies using these services, which is interesting. But as I understand it, I'm going to ask you this question again, Jose. As I understand it, there are some more concepts and more enhancements to eSIM and iSIM that are coming along as well. There's a lot of talk at the moment about SGB32 and also approaches to personalization. I think two-step personalization. Could you just outline what some of these emerging processes or concepts or enhancements are that are emerging at this point?
Yeah, I believe. I mean, we're moving to from eSIM to iSIM. There is a fundamental change in the logistics, right? The logistics chain needs to be adapted, and that's why the GSMA defined what we call two-step personalization, the ability to enable a new security or model to ensure that the SoC vendor, the chipset manufacturer, can collaborate with the SIM OS vendor, the device maker, the connectivity service provider, the SIM OS vendor, in a trusted way. So that when you produce an IoT module that has an iSIM inside and is programmable over the wire, over the air, however that is, using eSIM technology, it can be done securely at the device maker or OEM factory. And so that's going to be a big transformation, and it's important because it's only scalable with a secure process and it's with trust between all the players. And otherwise, we have the risk of not enabling iSIM properly and not making it scalable enough. So in that sense, we are, with the two-step personalization, enabling device makers and OEM to personalize IoT modules with a connectivity option they choose, right? With a connectivity provider option they choose at a very late stage. So basically replacing the SIM insertion process by a digital profile personalization process.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, and Alan, spinning forward, looking forward a number of years, yeah, where are we ultimately heading with eSIM, iSIM? How should this market work in the future?
I mean, I think it's a very interesting question, to be fair. I kind of see a lot of the we were kind of seeing the proto of this already, where you look at a lot of the consumer mobile market where they're shipping today with UICC enabled SIMs in them. And what tends to happen is you pick up and you either get to choose your connectivity provider or you register it with them. I think there's definitely a shift of breaking that kind of vendor lock-in at point of manufacture for SIMs and moving it much more to a kind of post-deployment personalization model. I think there comes a lot of interesting use cases which come around from how do you do kind of shelf pickup of an IoT device and say, I want to use this connectivity provider. There's definitely where SGP32 is evolving what was the previous M2M standard and aligning it more with the sort of consumer side so that personalization to a provider is a much easier step. I think we'll come to expect that a lot of devices are just connected by default, and it will come down to if you want to enrich that kind of experience, you can put your own connectivity provision in it. Again, this is a model that kind of comes pretty heavily in connected car. So if you think today, if you're driving your car, it might have an SOS function, it might have a telemetry-based function, but then you can pay for a data pack to go on top of that to use for more fine-grained services. I could see a world where your IoT device or your connected appliance has a sort of basic telemetry package, but you can then download a wider set of updates that you want to use for yourself. So I think that decoupling of device vendor lock-in and connectivity, whilst also still providing back the kind of metrics and key use cases, is something that we're going to see more and more of going forward.
Okay, thank you. And actually, there's quite an interesting question, a question of immense scope, in fact, potentially in terms of providing an answer, but from Martin, who has said, where does eSIM orchestration come into eSIM and iSIM solutions? Who wants to take that?
Happy to jump in. Essentially, that's just kind of what I was just talking about, is the eSIM orchestration is the orchestration of eUICC profiles onto a compatible SIM card. Now, that can be a standard old style format, which would be your kind of SIMs that you just put in a device, all the way through to embedded SIMs, which are also known as eSIMs, and iSIMs that come in. Now, there is a question where that sits in the market. So today you have a lot of dedicated orchestration providers. Now they'll either be working in SGP 22 or 31 or O2, which is the older style of doing it. SGP 32 turns that provision slightly on its head and makes it so that almost anyone can download the profile from a particular vendor onto a device. So people say that's going to change the market more in favor of MVNOs or connectivity service providers and away from the MNOs, because they'll then just be treated as either kind of the first touch or the download partner. But effectively, these are eSIM orchestration where it comes to embedded and iSIM is very much the orchestration provider of which the SIMs originally registered against to download a new connectivity profile to that device. Now, typically, an eSIM or an iSIM has to be provisioned with some method of connecting to a network, be it the internet or whichever. From that, an eSIM orchestration platform can then download an additional connectivity provision across that. And when we talk about SGP32 or SGP02 or whichever, we're talking about the technology in which that profile is downloaded onto the SIM.
Okay, thank you very much. It sounds like, I know it's an incredibly complicated topic. It's one that's much discussed at the moment in the market. Yatin, what I'd like to do is ask you about some of the other things that need to be done to make eSIM and iSIM mainstream. Really enable end users to adopt it easily with little friction and in any context that it really makes sense and has an advantage.
Jim, and especially in the context of the new standards coming out. The old standards have been there for 10 years now, so now we're looking at the new standards as well. And I think if I look at, let's say, the top 3 to 5 factors that are needed to make this successful, considering we expect most customers now to look towards the new standards. I think the first one is interoperability. As with cellular and as with how it's been, it's really important that all the players in the ecosystem, whether it's the MNOs, it's the SIM providers, module manufacturers, etc., the SIM OS suppliers, we need to make sure that this technology is interoperable, so that from a customer perspective, they have complete peace of mind that they can switch an EIM from one to another, they can switch SIM suppliers, they can switch network providers. It should still work. And that's why, and that brings to my second point, actually, which is that it needs to be standards-based. The standards have been in writing for a while. We as Vodafone actually are one of the part of the working group with the GSMA that defines these standards, and they are nearly ready to be now published for commercial use. So again, following those standards so that everyone has that same consistency across the ecosystem is important. Then I think we also need to be aware that the old standards, SGB02 and SGB32, will coexist. For many of our customers who have deployed the millions with the existing technology, we should be very clear that that's not something going to get wiped out. So we in the industry need to support that for many, many years to come, while at the same time encouraging and supporting the build out on the new standards as well. So finding a way to coexist, finding a way to make sure our customers can manage both standards is also going to be crucial. Then it comes to the expertise. I mean, Alan, Jose, and many of their colleagues and other organizations need to provide their expertise to especially the early adopters to help them to understand, to help them to scale, which are the devices that will work with the new standards. All of this will take time to build and for us to reach critical mass. So again, being able to support those early customers, I think is important. And finally, all of this comes obviously with a layer of security. So we also need to make sure that our customers are also assured that even the new standards and new technology that is offered is secure, if not more secure, as compared to existing standards and existing implementations.
Okay, thank you. I agree, yes, and it's going to be very impactful. Now, we are unfortunately very much approaching the end of our session because we have another presentation to introduce, but just to be done before the end of the hour. So we're down to our last couple of minutes. So, Alan, Jose, I wonder if I can ask you just within 1 minute maximum each, provide your thoughts on the impact in commercial dynamics of eSIM and iSIM. So commercial dynamics in the vendor connectivity provider community. Jose, do you want to go first?
Yes, sure. I would say the impact, we are already seeing that today. There's going to be, I think, so both from the connectivity service provider, IoT module vendors, SIM OS vendors, chipset vendors, they all need to get on board and like Jadin said before, get to fully support and embrace the standard. If that happens, then we can see, I mean, at least I can see just positive news for the IoT market and cellular IoT space as a whole. I can see simplified, like we said, logistics, simplified user experience, or improved user experience, and improved quality of service, and new applications coming up. So I think the market dynamics will be just benefit from eSIM and iSIM, as long as it is a simplification and it doesn't make things more complex, right? This is the key, right? If this becomes easier because we're adopting eSIM, then the market dynamics will actually be in favor of it. I mean, will help, the eSIM will help market cellular IoT market grow. Otherwise, it can be a risk because we are just adding complexity without adding value.
Okay, thank you. And Alan, just finally, a few very quick thoughts from you on how it's going to impact commercial dynamics.
I think it will reduce the cost of connectivity longer term, because inherently it allows you to switch. The technology is inherently allowing more customer, more vendor choice than there has been previously.
Yeah.
So I can see both increasing scale and demand for devices and our ability to service that, but at the same time potentially making certain types of connectivity more ubiquitous and more available to mass market.
Okay, thank you very much. Chaps, we're out of time, and we could talk about this for a long time without question. But at this point, I'd like to thank you, Yatin, Alan, Jose, for providing some very insightful thoughts on these, on eSIM and iSIM. I'd like to thank everybody out there for joining us.